So in today's video, I'm going to be walking through the cards that you want to be either keeping or selling at the beginning of FC25. So between now and the 6th of October, I'm going to be uploading a daily free eafc25 trading guide. This will include everything to do on the web app to make as many coins as possible with both trading and investing. I'll be talking about the full release, what we expect to see regarding the market, and there'll also be a daily updated investing guide, all in there, updated every day for free. No gimmicks whatsoever, all you gotta do is click on the Google Docs link on the top link of the description. So in today's video, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be walking through all the different sorts of cards that you might get yourself in your packs and rewards or whatever. And I'm going to be talking about is the best place to go and sell those cards, the best place to go and buy those cards, the best place to go and invest in whatever. And that's going to be the general premise of today's video. Before we do start though, if you guys are interested, I will be doing another I value your teams. Or I price your teams, which is where you guys are going to send me your FC25 teams, and I'll say how much do I think they're going to be. So do I think they're a good squad to start squad, you know, and so on and so on. If you guys do want to go and send me your teams, all you got to do is head over to Google, type in easy SBC, then what you want to do is click on this link right here, and then you want to go and click on Squad Builder, which is at the top of the screen. And then what you can do is you can go and build your squad. So for example, let's say I want to go and put in Rafinha for some unknown reason. And then what you can do is you can go and share the squad by pressing on share, grab this link, and then you can either email it to me, I'll put my email in the top comments, or you can head over to my Twitter and send it to my Twitter. I'm sure I'll send out a tweet. Sadly, you can't put them in the YouTube comment section. I mean, I'm not too familiar with how many or what sort of links you can put in the YouTube comment section, but it doesn't allow this link. So yeah, sadly in previous videos, I asked for you guys to link it, only then to kind of bait you guys all putting it, and it just instantly like deleted the comments. So yeah, God knows why I've done that. Well, today's video is going to be, I guess it'll maybe help you with your squad building, and that is going to be if you should go and keep your cards, sell your cards, when's the best time to happen, basically what happens, because we all know that gold cards crash a lot very early on. So we're going to split this video into cheap golds who are 10k and below. We're going to talk about what I dub as week 1 golds. These are golds that are about 10 to 50k. Then we're going to talk about meta weekly golds. These are going to be 100k or more. Then we're going to talk about cheap heroes and icons that are going to be 50k or less. We're talking about the heroes there. We're then talking about mid heroes and lower icons, which are going to be 50 to 500k. And then we're going to be talking about the top heroes and icons at 1 million. We're then going to move on to talking about Team of the Week 1s and your discard Team of the Week 1s. Then going to be talking about your meta Team of the Weeks who are 50k. And then we're going to talk about the top end ones that are, you know, like 200-300k. So to start off with, we're going to talk about the absolute cheap stuff. Now the players that I've selected, I've gone for the most popular or the most used cards in FC24, where the FC25 card is like the FC24 card. So for example, if I'm looking at players who are 10k and below, Camavinga's gold card was one of the statistically most used cards, and I do think that his card this year is quite comparable to his card, if I can go and find it, last year. There we go, to his card last year. So let's go and talk about what happened to these cheap 10k cards. So we can see that, now I will tell you that the dates of last FIFA is obviously different to the dates of this year, so it does make it a little bit awkward for following. So last year the Ultimate Edition came out on the 23rd, this year the Ultimate Edition comes out on the 20th. Last year the web app came out on the 20th, this year the web app's coming out on the 18th. Last year the full edition came out on the 29th, this year it's coming out on the 27th. When Division Rival Wars came out and when Foot Champs was and the first promo is all, well, I guess expected at minimum it will be the same. So let's talk through what happened to cards like Camavinga. In this example, we're going to be using Camavinga and we're going to be using Bruno Guilherme. These are their cards in FC25. I'd be very happy to say that both of these cards would be about 10k. Just going off, you know, they're not really straying too far from the previous cards. So look at Camavinga right here, and we can see that he was 10k. Now, this would have been the web app. Now, the web app was out as of the 20th, but Footbin doesn't actually gather data on day 1 of the web app. Maybe it's all setting their coding up or whatever. So sadly, we only have day 2. So what we can see right here is between, I guess, day 1 and the release of Ultimate Edition, we can see that Camavinga went up. Basically meaning Camavinga was a decent web app investment. And your best web app investments are always going to be Premier League players and French players. We can see this with Bruno Guilherme. We can see he was rising, and he went from 6k there to 10k there. Now, this is where they peaked. They peaked either the day before Ultimate Edition or the day of Ultimate Edition. From there, they just went down and down and down and down and down, but then I give you a more educated call than just saying down and down and down. So what they did is they actually, they peaked there on the day 1 of the Ultimate Edition, and they actually held value for 4 days. Now in previous years, what would actually happen is these cards would hold value, maybe drops ever so slightly like they have here, until the Ultimate Edition, But in FC24, we actually had a market crash before the Ultimate Edition even came out. Now, the reason the market normally crashes with the Ultimate Edition is because there's an insane amount of packs being opened, which means these 82 rated cards, these 10k cards, are getting packed more than they're kind of being demanded. But this happened earlier this year, and the reason it happened earlier is not so much the 10k cards, but the more expensive cards rose really fast. Stuff that, you know, like 50k cards, we're talking stuff maybe like Rodman's, we're talking stuff like Griezmann's. These guys, and I'll cover this later in the video, had insane inflation, and because they had insane inflation, people, you know, it couldn't stand forever. You know, like we couldn't keep on seeing Griezmann going up 20k a day because eventually everyone's going to run out of coins, and there's not going to be anyone to go and buy Griezmann 20k more than he was the day before. Well, what happened with the top cards was kind of they peaked on the 26th. The top cards dropped, and it had a trickle-on effect to the cheaper cards because, of course, let's say if something, let's say something was 20k, and it went up to like 35k, but now has been panic sold down to 25k. Because that card is now cheaper, it now means Camavinga at 10k isn't as good value for money. And because Camavinga isn't as good value for money at 10k, it meant that he proceeded to drop. So what happened was the market proceeded to drop from the 26th, which again was 2 days or 3 days before the Ultimate Edition, all the way down to this Saturday here. What's the relevance of this Saturday? It's the day after the full release. So we can see he went from 9k all the way down there to 4k. And then he plateaued out there till Tuesday. We see the same thing happen with Bruno Guilherme, where, again, the card dropped from the Ultimate Edition, was, you know, held for a few days, and then 3 days before the Standard Edition, he dropped and dropped and dropped, and the cheapest there was on the Saturday. Now, this Saturday is a very, very relevant time across the whole market, because we see a lot of cards be the cheapest here, and we actually saw the first rebounds since, I guess, the Ultimate Edition came out. So we then see the cards hold/rise between the Saturday after the full release all the way through to the Tuesday. So 2 days before either the first or second Division Rival Awards. We see the same thing happen with Camavinga. We see him rise from the Saturday, and we see him peak there on the Tuesday. So again, 2 days before Division Rival Awards. And that is kind of the overall trend. And then this is the first weekend league here. The first weekend league occurred on Friday the 6th. So after Division Rival Awards, the cards then dropped all the way through to Saturday, Sunday, and then we saw a little bit of a rebound through to Wednesday. But kind of after your first week in league, a lot of these cards that are 10k and below are going to be 2k, which does mean you can kind of use them without there being loads of coins to be lost. But of course, we're talking going into the second week in league with Camavinga, which in previous years it might have been a thing, but yeah, not really so much this year. There is a chance this Camavinga might be above 10k, but I'm more kind of using last year's comparisons than this year's. So again, the same thing happened with Bruno Guilherme, where dropped to the day after Ultimate Edition, rebounded to the Tuesday, Wednesday, and then dropped there down to the Sunday, and then had a slight rebound to the following Wednesday. And that kind of wraps up cheap cards. So regarding cheap cards for investments, they were okay investments on the web app, but because the nice thing about investing in the web app is you would just go and sell them once the Ultimate Edition came out, and then you'd go and invest in stuff higher up the ladder. So I'd say between the web app and the Ultimate Edition, nice investments. After the Ultimate Edition, you can have them in your team, but just be wary because, again, they're only going to rise to the Ultimate. They're only going to hold in price through to the Standard Edition coming out, or they might crash earlier like they did last year. So that is the cheap cards. Now I'm going to move on to mid-tier cards. Mid-tier cards I'm dubbing as about 10 to 50k. We're going to be talking about Marcus Llorente, and we are going to be talking about Rafinha. Their prices respectively last year were 30, and he went up there to 40, and Rafinha was here 20 to 50. So definitely on the upper end of the, you know, the more expensive cards. So what was the trends with Llorente and Rafinha? Well, the first trend, which was quite interesting, was all about pricing on the web app. Now, it's hard to believe because I generally think Llorente did have a really appetizing looking card, but 40k was actually overpriced for Llorente. And again, it's very much in hindsight. We know that he was 40k, but again, it's all kind of hindsight. But that was too much, and we know it's too much because once the full game came out and there was a significant amount of supply and there was an equal amount of demand, we can see it went down from 40 to 30. They did rebound back up again, but we can see right here that this price was basically, it was just too expensive. Now, again, calling that something is overpriced is definitely easier said than done, and it's very easy to spot in hindsight. So how can we avoid this happening? Well, the best way to avoid this happening is just diversify your investment. You can put all your eggs in one basket, but you might go and miss out. But if you went and bought a Llorente day one, and then also went and bought a Rafinha day one, you see Rafinha didn't have that dip at the beginning. Rafinha just had a rise. And that's because Rafinha maybe wasn't so underpriced, but you know, he was a more fair market value. If it was 40k, he would have dropped down here to 30k, but it wasn't. The market said, you know what, I think Rafinha at 26k is okay. Well then what both of them proceeded to do eventually once Lorente got its price corrected, from Ultimate Edition through to the 26th, we saw these cards rise. And again, we saw a decent rise on them. You know, we saw like, what, 27k to 39k is decent. I mean, I think Rafinha was a little bit nicer there. We saw from the Ultimate Edition 34k to 50k. So these were some of your best investments, also best price range to invest in. I'd say best price range to invest in, we're looking around about 30k plus, who are French and Prem ideally, but there's some exceptions, you know, like these cards are very meta. I mean, if you are 30 to 50k, unless you're SBC fodder, you probably are going to be nice and meta, and again, you should see a nice rebound either through to the Ultimate Edition, or what we're going to see again, like we did last year, was where they peaked on the 26th, because what happened was, you know, maybe not so much with these, but I think it's more with the Rodmans, the Dianis, a lot of the women's card, they had such hyperinflation, such high inflation, that just wouldn't stand, and they were inevitably going to drop. Well, then what happened after they dropped all the way through to the Sunday. And if I head over to Rafinha, that was Rafinha, sorry. If I head all the way through to Lorente, you can see the same thing here, dropping to the Saturday, Sunday. So it's the same trend as the cheap players, where they drop to the day after, give or take, of the full edition. Then what happened is they then proceeded to hold through to Tuesday, same as the cheap cards. We can see this happen with Lorente, and again we can see this happen here with Rafinha. I'm not quite sure why stuff was peaking on the Tuesday. I don't know if it's we didn't get promos on this Sunday, Monday, Tuesday and allowed the market to rebound, but obviously Thursday increases supply with division rivals. But yeah, we see them peak on the Tuesday, and then what happened is they then went and dropped all the way through there to the Saturday. So your first weekend league is here. So I mean, all the way up until weekend league starting, they weren't too bad. You know, 37 to 32, we can live with it. But then on Friday with the promo, they dropped from 32 to 22. And again, I'll go and show you the same thing with Lorente. On the Friday, he already wasn't too expensive, but 17 to 12. Now the reason this would have happened is because this was road to the final. It might have been week 2 of road to final actually. There just would have been lots of promo packs being opened. And yeah, people basically would have just been moving up the ladder. But yeah, basically weekend league starting didn't make players go up. Weekend league starting, if anything, made cards crash. And now we can see for the second week in a row now, the cards are cheap on a Saturday. And then we see them rebound. Basically what happens is the market drops in the hours people are playing Weekend League, and then it rebounds the hours people aren't playing Weekend League. This is because when people are playing Weekend League, they're probably selling their teams after and upgrading themselves down the ladder. Because what you'll see with the more expensive cards, they don't drop as much when people are finished playing Weekend League. And it's because there's people upgrading to that level. But reality is, and it's kind of crazy, but 2 weeks in, people aren't upgrading to Lorente. Lorente's cards are already, for some people, I mean, obviously not enough because he's still 12k, but some people, he's already out the picture of them wanting to use him for Weekend League. So, but we do see the same nice trend here where he rises Saturday through to Tuesday. So for 2 weeks in a row now, we've seen the market kind of drop till Saturday, rise till Tuesday. This is really nice to trade on a progressive market, and I'll show you why with a lovely paint graph. So, if we know that the market is going to do this, right? If we know every Saturday to Tuesday, the market is going to rebound, what we're kind of looking for is we're looking for dips between Saturday to Tuesday. So what does this mean? Well, the market isn't like this. It might look like this on a footbin graph because it's the average of 24 hours, but it might not look like this. What it might be in reality is it might be a little bit like this. So you can see how it's evening out at the green, but you can see it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, again, if we're really confident on a trend, and this is a very, very common thing that happens in FIFA, what we can do is if we know that every single day he's going to be worth more than he was the day before, and let's say he's 12k here, right? And then let's say we see him getting panic sold down to 9k, but we are very confident that he's just going to be worth 14k tomorrow. Well, then what we do is when we see him getting panic sold down to 9k, it might be after 6 PM content, there might be packs, there might be untradable promo packs which create a bit of panic selling. Maybe there's an SBC, but it doesn't really directly affect Lorente. What we can do is go and buy him at 9, and if we want, we can go and sell him at 14, because we can then go and gamble that, do you know what, there'll probably be another drop, and it'll go down here to 12k. So each day the drops are less than, each day the card drops to a lower price, like he won't drop down to 9k really, because he went up higher. And this is basically the idea. It's between Saturday to Tuesday, and this kind of works from like the mid. I mean, it kind of worked with the cheap stuff, but it's kind of like the mid-market onwards, because the cards are slightly rarer, meaning the supply and demand can be a lot more affected. You can basically just look for dips and rises, and then sell when the card dips, because we're confident on there being the rise. And if I go and show you for the third, I mean, I think it even happened for a 4th week in a row. It kind of does, but the card doesn't really rise as much. So first week where the market is the cheapest on the Saturday, rebounds to the Tuesday. Second week, Saturday, rises to Tuesday. Third week, Saturday, I say rises to Tuesday, but he didn't really work too well on the third week, but it will work with the more expensive cards. But yeah, there's Llorente. Again, nice rise all the way up until Ultimate Edition, unless there's a market crash before that. Then the second time you can go and buy them, it's the Saturday after the full release, which will be this year, the 28th. And then they'll rebound through to Tuesday, and then they'll go and drop off all the way through to Saturday from Tuesday. And so if you want to build your weekly teams, you literally have to wait till Saturday, build your teams on Saturday, probably after 6 PM content, because that's normally where you get upgrade packs, or maybe there's more players in packs, and then go and play your weekly Saturday, where you got through to Monday morning. But that's just more optimal. If you care, you care. But if not, you pay the price of the cards dropping. We're now going to move on to the more meta weekly golds, and we're going to be talking about Kyle Walker, who doesn't look like that. We got Kyle Walker, and then we're also going to be talking about the legendary. No, we're not going to be talking about Mendy. I think we decided to skip Mendy. Yeah, we're going with Dembele. The reason we're going to skip Mendy is because Mendy's just a phenomenon that will always go against any trend whatsoever. So I don't think he fits the agenda. So yeah, we head on to Kyle Walker right here. So what happened with Kyle Walker? Again, he was priced a little bit too much on the web app, so he dropped when the Ultimate Edition came out. But look at this rise right here, 83k to 134k. Really, really nice. We move through to Dembele, and it's actually, I mean, again, you can see this card was very overpriced on the web app. But it went from 200k there to 280. Interesting enough, Dembele really not outperforming Kyle Walker. I mean, what's Dembele gone up? Dembele went up about 70k, and if we go look at Kyle Walker went up, what's that, like 55k, and he was about a third of his price. So, I always say French and Prem, but Prem dubbing there. I'd also say that Kyle Walker is about a third of his price, and this kind of comes back to buying super expensive players, unless they're heroes and icons, which I'll talk about later, doesn't really outperform buying 30 to maybe 100k players, because so many more people are upgrading to that 30 to 100k mark, whereas are they upgrading to a 250k mark in the first week? It's a lot less likely, unless they're ruining the bank. Well, what happened with these cards? It was the same sort of trend, peaked on the 26th, and this is kind of what I meant. When I said there was like hyperinflation where, Kyle Walker was going up, what? He went up 12k that day, he went up 20k that day, he went up another 17k that day. Kyle Walker can go up another 17, 20k every day, because he'd be a 250k player before we know it. Because there was this such sharp demand, and it wasn't sustainable. You can see it's not sustainable because it plateaued out, and then it dropped. Yeah, it just wasn't sustainable. So then that led him to not rise, people then panicked, and then panicked, and then it went down. So we can see, again, Friday, that's the release. Interesting enough, he wasn't cheaper on the Saturday than it was the Friday, but there isn't too much in it. So then we can see he was cheap on the Saturday, and the same sort of trend we've seen with other players. He rose from Saturday through to Tuesday. So again, we can get this graph out, same sort of thing we're looking for. Saturday to Tuesday rise, we should look for the troughs, because again, we know that every day they go up. And the same thing happened with Dembele. We can go and show you Dembele right now. Peaked up there on the 26th. Was the cheapest there on Saturday. I'll be honest with you, he actually didn't really have as good of a rise, and it may come down to his price. But you can see that he basically stopped dropping between Saturday to Tuesday. So what happened after the first Tuesday? What happened basically going into the first weekend league? Going into the first weekend league, he peaked on the Tuesday, and then he dropped all the way there down to the Saturday and Sunday. Again, it's a trend we've seen everywhere, where they drop down to Saturday, people finish playing the weekend league on the Saturday, and then they stop dropping, and then they rebound through to the Tuesday. So again, second Saturday to Tuesday trend right there. We head over to Dembele, and we can see the same thing right there. Saturday, rebounding there to Tuesday. It's interesting because Dembele didn't actually rebound as well the first week, but then he outperformed Kyle Walker on the second week, which is quite interesting. But then, yeah, after that, I mean, Kyle Walker then proceeded to actually rise. He had a really nice rise then. He then proceeded to rise. He didn't actually have the Tuesday to Saturday drop after that, and then proceeded to rise. And then after, what are we looking at? After about a month of the game out, a month of the game being out, he then decided to drop. And I think it's a little bit like here with Dembele. So again, yeah, your buy times on these cards are Saturday after Weekend League started. Ideally, wrap your Weekend League up as ASAP. And then you can go and sell them on the Tuesday. So that is your top end cards. See if there's any more things for me to say. Investments at the beginning of the game, they're okay. The nicest thing is these cards are a lot more stable than the cheap cards. It's not like Llorente. These cards basically are holding value for the best part of about 3.5 weeks. Whereas if we look at Llorente, we go back here. These cards just weren't holding their value as good for the first month. So that's the nicer thing about the more expensive cards, that they're not fluctuating an insane amount, but they hold their value a lot better. So that goes and wraps up gold cards. Now we're going to talk about heroes. I'm going to start about the plebby cheap heroes, and I say plebby cheap heroes, but there weren't actually heroes really below 50k. So we look at someone like Crouching Tiger. Again, went from 97 to 37 because he was just overpriced on the web app. He then proceeded to rebound, again the classic, rebounded from the Ultimate Edition all the way through to the 26th. And he went up nicely, went up from 37 to 58, so 21k right there. Not bad, it's about average for someone on his price. But then when he dropped, he went down from 58 back down there to 41. It's the same drop to the day after the full release. Then he rebounded from the Saturday through to the Wednesday, which is interesting because a lot peaked on the Tuesday. But yeah, really nice rebound. A lot of gold cards weren't really rebounding from 40 to 60, so nice to see there with Crouch. Why would Crouch have rebounded more than gold cards? Probably would have been down to the card just being rarer. You know, Crouch at 50k is going to be, in terms of cards on the market, probably a lot rarer than gold cards who are 50k. And the same thing happened here with Tim Cahill, where again, heavily overpriced on the web app, rebounded to the 26th, dropped to the Saturday after the full release, rebounded to the Wednesday, then again, same trend regarding Weekend League, dropped down there as through to the Saturday after the first Weekend League started, then held price through to the Tuesday. And these cards again were pretty solid. They held their value pretty well for the first month. What were we seeing? 50, 30, I think Crouch did a little bit better than Cahill, but yeah, held their price pretty well. Relatively decent cards to invest in. Again, you can kind of use them for the first 2 weeks and you're not losing any coins whatsoever right there. We now move on to we move up quite a fair bit here. We're going to start moving on to the 500k heroes and icons. So, Paulo Futre, his rise was impeccable. The players are comparing, by the way, are going to be Paulo Futre as a hero and Zanetti as an icon. So Zanetti, really, really nice rise right here. Between the Ultimate Edition and before the first market crash, over doubled in price, went from 200k there to 400k. So that's an interesting note. Dembele only went from about 200 to 280. An icon of the same price of what Dembele was going for didn't only go up 80, went up 230k. So with 200, if you've got 200k on the Ultimate Edition, it's actually looking quite nice to go and invest in icons over golds of their value. And there's also other benefits which we'll talk about here. And the same thing with Paulo Futre, 370 up to 650. But reality is, it's having 370k in the first day of Ultimate Team. I mean, it's a hard problem to have, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be for the minority, I guess. Well, what proceeded to happen? The same thing. Went from the 26th down there to the Friday. Interesting though, a lot of players dropped to the Saturday. But Paulo Futre dropped here to the Friday. Zanetti, what's also really nice about this is his drop only was 430 down to 360, which does sound bad, but compared to golds is very, very nice. Bear in mind, golds only went up 80 and then went down 80. Zanetti went up 230 and then went down 90. So, went down 70. So, yeah, not too bad whatsoever. Then we got the Classic. Again, also, only dropped to Friday. A lot of the market dropped till Saturday, given they only rose 10k there, but yeah. Then we see the Classic rising Saturday through to Tuesday, although he got Wednesday. If we had a look at Paulo Futre, he rose there to Wednesday. Now, this is what's quite interesting. So this is going into the first Weekend League. Paulo Futre went from 620k down to 520k. But Zanetti went from 408k only down there to 390. So Zanetti barely went down in comparison to Paulo Futre. Paulo Futre again went down about 15%, whereas Zanetti went down not even like 10%, went down like 5%. So actually no, it went down 10%. So yeah, icons holding value better than heroes. I mean, if you look at these graphs, you can see Zanetti's is so much flatter than Paulo Futre's, which is up and down, up and down. This is also why icons are really, really good to trade with, because if you know that this card is flat, but you see this card have a random 15, 20% drop, you go, I know this card just rebounds to the same price it was the day before, because it was literally flat for, it was flat till the 27th of October. So you got what, a month and a bit, a month and a week of the card consistently being the same price, if not even rising. And again, this is more the trend with the top cards. The heroes really weren't. I mean, I guess the heroes were probably as good in all fairness. They just had a bigger dip here and then they rebounded quite nicely with Paulo Futre. But yeah, I mean, going into the first Weekend League, if I haven't already covered it, dropped with the first Weekend League, then rebounded Saturday to Tuesday, then dropped to the Saturday to Tuesday, dropped till Saturday, then rebounded to the Tuesday. Same thing with Zanetti, but you know, the drops weren't as big, and I guess the rebounds weren't as big. First week in leagues here, 400. Dropped down there to 390. Rebounded to Wednesday, 420. Dropped for the second week in league. Rose, but yeah, really, really nice trends in the top end heroes and icons. Now I'm going to talk about the very top end icons. There wasn't really too much to say about these cards because the bit like Zanetti, very flat cards. 4 million on the release, went up there to 5.6, so just an awful investment. In terms of return on investment, would have been absolutely appalling. But the cheapest she was for absolutely ages was the first day of FIFA. But that's no surprise. But it just wouldn't be, you'd be efficient buying other stuff than just waiting for like Thursday and buying her. Interesting that she went from 6.1 to 4.8 with these top end icons. Footbin doesn't really give the best picture. The reason is because Footbin is whatever the card is, the cheapest card is listed on the market. So the cheapest card for Mirham was listed on the market for 10 million. Footbin would go and tell me 10 million. But it doesn't mean it's worth 10 million. Alright, so if I had a Batman Ferrari, the only one in the world, and I put it up for 15 million, doesn't mean it's worth 15 million. It's just 15 million is the cheapest on the market, and that's kind of how Footbin values it. Yeah, I mean, all of these like real top end icons literally held their value all the way through to mid-December. So you can use these cards for 3 months, and you just aren't losing. I mean, literally, release date 5.3 million, 15th of December 5.3 million. Same thing with Thierry Henry. Release date 2 million. Again, rose there from 1 million to 2.1. Just not a great value for money investment. He did drop a little bit with the full release, but I mean, we are talking 150k, which he ate back up easily. Again, only went from about 2 million to 1.8 million in using for about 3 months. We've done the same here with Ginola. Ginola had a nice rebound, 2.1 to 3.1, outperforming the icons when it came to investing. Did see a drop here after week in League 1, which was interesting, from 2.9 to 2.4, but anything he drops, he kind of just ate back up. And again, was even still worth 2.3 million in December, so only dropped about 700k in 3 months, which, I mean, if you're getting top end rewards, you're not complaining about. Now, just to go and wrap the video up, we're just going to talk about Team of the Week 1 slightly. Talking about discard Team of the Weeks, they did absolutely nothing for 2 months, and then they did something. Interesting enough, the best thing to do with these Team of the Weeks is you see how they didn't rise whatsoever. Because they didn't rise, the supply was so heavy, but then we saw a rise here from 11k up to 14.5k. Which then would seem a bit crazy investing in them, because you go, well, they're 11k for so long. But the reality is if they've actually gone up to 14.5k, all that supply that just, you know, has allowed these cards to not move whatsoever has been eaten up. So actually, I guess once they had that initial drop, that was a really decent time to invest in Team of the Weeks, because the first time they needed, the supply is still quite, you know, still a lot in the market. But the second time, we see they go from 13 to 24. So I think that in FC 25, I'm going to keep an eye on when these Team of the Weeks move off of being discard, because when they move off of being discard, it shows a lack of supply, and the supply really is what drives the price of Team of the Weeks going up and down. Same thing happened here with Arkatoglu. This guy actually played the other day. If we go and show you first month, this is literally the first month. We went from what, 10 to 11. There's nothing on that, but again, we can see the first rise here, 11 up to 14, but then the second time they're needed is really where the money was. So yeah, just an interesting look. Now, just going to talk about the mid-tier informs. Cheap as they were was on the Ultimate Edition, then rose between the Ultimate Edition. Interesting enough, this Hummels actually rose when the rest of the market was dropping on the 27th. And these cards had a bit of a different trend. They didn't drop on the 26th when the rest of the market did. They actually dropped on the 27th, which is actually when they went out of packs, because it's a heavy misconception that when something goes out of packs, it has to go up. Because, you know, just because they stop making something doesn't mean it's demanded. And basically people would have overestimated the demand. It went down between the 27th to the 30th, again, the day after the full release, and they rose between the full release through to Tuesday. So actually quite interesting how these informs are actually quite good value for money investments on the full release, because of course the cards were quite rare and there was demand. Same thing with Lamptey. Lamptey's a bit scuffed because we obviously had that Kudos card, but rose here between the Ultimate Edition and then the full, and then the 26th, which is when the market crashed. Went down slightly after Wednesday because, again, it would have been a little bit overinvested, but then did rise on the Friday due to Kudos, although I would imagine he would have had a trend a little bit more like Hummels. Same thing with Kachawi, Ultimate Edition, peaked on the 26th, although the 27th probably wasn't too bad. Dropped because she was overinvested, dropped to the Friday, but then rebounded on the Tuesday. Not crazy money after tax, but again, would have been a nice card to trade with her just being rare. Sala, same thing. Ultimate Edition, 450. Peaked on the 26th at 700. Nice rise, not the best return on investment, but still decent. Dropped through to the Friday. So again, some of these super expensive cards seem to only drop to the Friday, not the Saturday. Then rebounded between the Friday to the Wednesday. Nice rebound there of 110k. And then obviously, like the rest of the market, drops on the Tuesday, Wednesday, through to Saturday, and then has the classic Saturday to Tuesday. So I think that has kind of wrapped it up. Again, if you guys want to go and link me your teams, I'll be going through your teams in tomorrow's pricing, your guys' FC25 teams. Thank you very much for the support. And yeah, shall see you guys tomorrow with a brand new video.